Welcome to the Bringing Dreams and Miracles Together podcast. My name is Stacy Swiderski, and I'm the CEO and founder of Family Source Consultants. In this episode, our host and client development advisor, Chris Gao, welcomes Rich Geisler, attorney and founder of Fertility and Surrogacy Legal Group, to unpack a pressing topic on the minds of many intended parents, the executive order concerning birthright citizenship. Rich breaks down what executive orders are, the current legal status of this particular order, and what it means for international intended parents pursuing surrogacy in the United States. They discuss the potential outcomes on citizenship, passport issuance, and offer insight into alternative solutions and legal safeguards. While many aspects remain uncertain, one thing is clear: the surrogacy community is staying proactive and committed to helping families navigate every step of the journey. Whether you're an intended parent, a legal professional, or simply curious about surrogacy and policy changes, this episode is a must listen.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Family Source Consultants podcast. My name is Chris Gao. I'm the client development advisor at Family Source Consultants, and I'll be your host today. So recently, we have been receiving a lot of questions from intended parents regarding the executive order from the president and abortion ban, etc. So we have a very special guest today here joining us, answering your legal questions. And please welcome Rich Geisler from Fertility and Surrogacy Legal Group. Hi, Rich. How are you today?
Good, Chris. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure to have you here today. I know you've been you've been practicing law for a long time, specifically in fertility and surrogacy, and it's absolutely our honor to have you here today addressing some of the popular questions from our intended parents, given, the time we live in right now.
Sure.
But first, can you please introduce yourself and your firm?
Sure. Yeah, my pleasure. So, Rich Geisler, as you mentioned, Fertility and Surrogacy Legal Group. We're a law firm that specializes in fertility law and art law. We've only specialized in this since we started back in 2012. We've grown from just me to a staff of 11 people. We work all over the country with attorneys and surrogates from all over the country and parents from all over the world. And happy to chat today. Like you said, there's a lot of with this industry, it's always changing. It seems like everything affects our industry at some level. So the recent executive order, I know a lot of folks have some questions about. So happy to pontificate about that a little bit with you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you again. And so, speaking of the recent executive order, a lot of parents have been asking about, the possibility of the birthright citizenship executive order. Can we just start with, explaining or clarifying the current status of the executive order, where it's at?
Sure. So just kind of high level, if you look at what an executive order is, it's basically a written order from the President of the United States as the head of the executive branch. So executive orders have been made by presidents since the beginning of the Union, and they basically give direction to the executive branch of government. So
Mhm.
the direction that these orders give needs to be within the constitutional framework and needs to
Mhm.
be considered legal or within the powers enumerated to the president by either the Congress in a congressional action or by the Constitution itself. So executive orders are typical. We get them, and sometimes they're temporary because they only last as long as that president's in office, because
Right.
the next president may come in and revoke that order or change it. And then
Yep.
it kind of varies with how those executive orders are then implemented while that president is there in
Mhm.
office. And so what you typically see is if it's an order that is found to be legal and constitutional, that then it stays in place and it can be then codified by Congress in some way to then implement that order more officially, if you will, and last more
Okay.
long term. So that's kind of what an executive order is and
Mhm.
where the kind of genesis of where this dialogue started.
Got it. Got it. Okay. And in terms of the specific birthright
Mhm.
citizenship executive order, can you tell us what that is and, where is that?
Yeah, great question. So with that, you have birthright citizenship is enumerated in the Constitution, and this order is basically stating that it was executive order by President Trump that the any babies born to non-citizens or to somebody here that's a non-citizen temporarily, even if they are here legally,
Mm-hmm.
that they would not be considered a U.S. citizen, and they're not offered the same birthright citizenship.
Mm-hmm.
That order, whether or not that's going to be upheld, is constitutional to be determined. So
Right. Okay.
the way these things are determined is by the court. So you
Mm-hmm.
have federal courts that then
Mm-hmm.
they answer federal issue questions. So you have
Mm-hmm.
lower courts that go up to the Supreme Court on the federal side. So
Mm-hmm.
currently, this order has been challenged by a number of different entities and states and in various different states. And currently, there's been an injunction ordered on the
Mm-hmm.
order. And an injunction is
Okay.
basically an order from the court to say, don't implement this.
Okay.
There's been an injunction order. There's been actually three of them that have stopped the order from being effectuated at this point.
Okay. I
And so
see.
currently that's where it sits.
Right. So, okay, let's say if this executive order were to be effective, how would that impact surrogacy? And I would say especially for the parents who are not American citizens.
Okay. Yeah, good question there. So, and that's the that's the crucial question. So we will
Hmm.
probably not know if this is going to be upheld constitutionally unless they fast track it to get to the Supreme Court, which we'll call SCOTUS, unless they fast track it to get to SCOTUS, it'll probably take a year plus, maybe two,
Okay.
to get an
Right.
actual order from SCOTUS to say whether or not they consider this a constitutional action or not. So
Okay.
if they were to say it is, and now
Hmm.
this is upheld in its full form, the answer there is a little unknown on how it will be implemented and how that will affect our international clients,
Right.
because clients will come over here internationally. They'll have a baby,
Hmm.
let's say in California, Texas, wherever.
Hmm.
It's the state that then issues the birth certificate.
Right.
Okay, so the state and federal are different, as we all know.
Hmm.
So our parents internationally will still be able to get a birth certificate because the executive order is a federal side and the birth
Right.
certificates come from the state side.
Okay.
So our parents should be able to get birth certificates without issue, unless there's some
Right.
states that react to the executive order and they do something at the state level, but we haven't heard any murmurs of that yet,
Hmm.
about birth certificates. So
Right.
birth certificates should then be issued normally for our
Hmm.
international.
Okay. Right.
So then where does the EO come in that birthright citizenship? So that would come in your next step, would that be for our international parents who
Hmm.
typically, when they want to go home with their baby, they go to the U.S. passport office, and
Right.
that's the State Department, the U.S. State Department. And the State Department then
Hmm.
issues a passport based on the citizenship of the baby. And then they
Hmm.
use that passport to then get home. We've
Right.
helped clients get passports for a decade now. We get expedited
Yep.
passports, help them get out of here quickly. Um,
Absolutely.
so if this executive order is in place, the trick is going to be, how is the State Department going to implement it? Is
Hmm.
there going to be a form now that says,
Mm.
is the birth mother a citizen? Do we have to
Right.
show some proof of that? And we
Hmm.
just don't know the answer of what that's going to look like yet, because that's
Okay.
not something the State Department has asked for at this point.
Right. Right.
And so to
Got
get
it.
in the weeds just a little bit more, the executive order says that the biologic progenitor
Hmm.
needs to be a citizen.
Okay.
So then you think about what surrogacy is.
Right.
Who is the biologic progenitor? Is it the surrogate that delivered
Mm.
the baby,
Hmm.
who is a citizen?
Hmm.
Is it the genetic parent or the genetic
Hmm.
source? So maybe the
Hmm.
intended mother or even an egg donor.
Exactly.
And then is the egg donor a citizen? And how does that
Right.
come to this?
Yeah.
Um, so because surrogacy is so nuanced, obviously this
Hmm.
executive order is not nuanced. So how are we going to piece that in? And it's kind of
Absolutely.
to be determined a bit on how it gets implemented long term.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's so tricky because, it's something that may not seem as complicated for someone to, look at. Just oh, it's an executive order, like foreign parents,
Right.
baby who is born in the United States will no longer have American citizenship. But then when it comes to surrogacy, there truly are all these pieces. Who is the person you're going based off? It
Mhm.
is
Right.
there is so much for us to figure out as well. But so my takeaway is that even if it's this executive order is going to be effective, it's going to take some time. It's not going to be effective right away. It's going to take some time, and then the birth certificate will still not be affected at all. So basically, once the baby is born, the baby will still have a birth certificate saying, date and time and place of the
Correct.
birth, and everything is legal. The piece that may be affected is the child's citizenship, whether the child is going to have an American passport or not. That is the piece
Correct.
that may be affected. And even that, there's so much we still need to figure out because right now nothing is quite clear just yet,
Right. And
right?
so
Okay.
being solution based, which we all are in this industry, so let's just say that the parents cannot get a US passport
Hmm.
because of this. Well,
Hmm.
then how do they get home? So being solution based on that front, we work during COVID with a lot of clients to
Hmm.
then they use their home country
Right.
to get some travel document or some ability for the baby to travel internationally using the home
Hmm.
country. So we've set folks up to go to the German consulate, the Chinese consulate, you name it, and we did that a lot during COVID when the State Department was shut down to get some sort of local documentation for their home country to get the baby home. So that is potentially one path forward. We can talk about other paths forward with regard to if the State Department's looking at the birth certificate and
Hmm.
that's who they're looking at to then say, are they a citizen or not? Well, who do we put
Hmm.
on the birth certificate first?
Right.
Because sometimes we've put surrogates on and then removed them later and done things. And everybody has to be on the same page with that. And obviously, you have to make sure that's above board and legal to do.
Yep.
So those are just some things to consider when
Hmm.
figuring out if there's a path forward to be solution based on how do we get these folks home.
Right, absolutely. So, the parents out there, if you're listening, we just want you to know that yes, it certainly seems to be an unknown or challenging time right now because the truth is there is a lot of unknown to come, I guess. But no matter what, all these experts, we're here to help you, and we'll make sure you are able to bring your baby back home safely and smoothly. And in terms of whether or not the baby will have American citizenship, that is the piece we are not exactly clear right now. But as soon as we have more clarity, we'll make sure to update you.
It's well put, Chris. And I would say that this industry is resilient, and it really showed that, especially during
Mhm.
COVID, where all of us came together.
Yes,
The attorneys, the agencies, everybody came together to, again, help people get home, help get birth certificates at the time. And I think we will
absolutely.
manage this just like we've done before.
Exactly. Like, sometimes I feel like, yes, COVID totally sucks, but after getting through COVID, it just feels like there's nothing we can get through anymore. It's
It
like if we
really
could get
showed
through
us. Yeah,
COVID,
agreed. Yeah.
right?
And it did suck. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, well, so moving on to the next topic, a lot of parents have been asking about, the abortion ban, and certain states have banned abortion at different phase of the pregnancy and stuff. What happens if there is an abortion ban on a federal level? How would that impact surrogacy?
Sure. So we can look at that kind of in two different steps. So first, the likelihood of a federal abortion ban. So the
Hmm.
likelihood of that to be determined. I would say it's unlikely,
Right.
just based on the fact that the decision that was made in Dobbs by the Supreme Court was the complete opposite of having anything federally
Hmm.
to dictate an abortion status or the ability to have an abortion. The
Hmm.
whole that whole opinion was predicated on this as basically a state level issue. This is not a
Right.
federal issue. So in the event that this Congress and this president were to pass, and let's say they did do an abortion ban pass, would that then be held up constitutionally by this SCOTUS. Judging by what was written in the Dobbs decision, I would say unlikely. I could be wrong,
Mm-hmm.
but so I would say the likelihood of a federal one is limited.
Okay.
But let's just say it were to happen. At
Right.
that point, we would have to deal with uh, basically limiting those abortions and the ability to have them within the contract,
Mm.
and finding ways to protect the parents and the surrogate as much as we possibly can within the contract. Um,
Right.
are there places that still allow for it, or they're not? Would there be exceptions? You would write that into the contract to try and address those issues. But if there
Mm.
were some federal level, I think that the industry would then just have to adjust to
Right.
what those timeframes are.
Yeah, absolutely. It's currently again a lot of parents ask about this because no one like obviously no one is spending all this money to have a baby through surrogacy just to have an abortion. No one is ever
Right.
doing that. But like obviously parents are sometimes concerned about
Of course.
severe medical conditions or just and also the risks for the surrogate as well. So, like currently, what we always tell parents is that, if the surrogate lives in a state where abortion is like state laws are not very friendly towards abortion, we'll always put together a plan in advance. God forbid, if it comes to that, she needs an abortion, we will have a plan and we'll fly her to a different state or drive her to a different state to have it done. And so, sometimes parents are be like, we'll be concerned, what if there's a federal abortion ban? Thank you so much for addressing this today. And I hope parents out there, if you're listening, understand that it is not the most likely thing to happen, but even if it does happen, we, as an industry, will adjust to it and we'll make sure we find a solution to it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we've done with the states that, like you mentioned, have those
Hmm.
stricter provisions.
Yeah, absolutely. What about same-sex marriage rights? Or like, some parents are concerned about same-sex marriage, and if same-sex marriage were no longer permitted or legally recognized, would same-sex couples still be able to pursue surrogacy? And what would the parentage process look like if that's the case?
Yeah, another issue that I know a lot of folks have some concerns about, and
Mhm.
I'll kind of have the same approach if you look at the likelihood of it.
Right.
So you had the Obergefell opinion that kind of opened the door for at the federal level to allowing for recognition of same-sex marriages under different federal guidelines.
Mhm.
Similar to abortion and birth certificates and everything else, a marriage is a state level issue though at the same time.
Okay.
So
Right, right.
even some recognition on the federal level of a disallowance of same-sex marriage, which I'm not sure how they would do that. That uphold judicial scrutiny as well? That one I don't know about. I don't think it
Okay.
would. There was some in the concurring opinion in the Dobbs decision. Justice Thomas did mention some issue with Obergefell and the fact that they had mentioned that was kind of leaned on substantive due process to allow for that. And he
Okay.
just specifically has an issue with substantive due process. That's very much in the weeds of
Mm.
that opinion. But he seemed to be the only one in that concurrence that even referenced that. So I don't know the
Okay.
likelihood of that getting more traction.
Right.
Just my opinion on what I read. So I don't foresee something from the federal level trickling down that detailed into the states to then not to disallow for states to recognize same-sex marriage. Now, then if you did have certain states that did do that,
Mm-hmm.
we would adjust like we did before, where we would get orders out of other states
Yep.
where we could, which we do
Right.
frequently now, where we'll get a California order and we'll present it to the Georgia vital records and they'll look at it. So you can always
Mm-hmm.
kind of adjust as to where you get your order from.
Okay.
And then the same-sex couples at that point would have options to do things like step parent, second parent adoptions
Right. Right.
to try and bolster their legal rights
Mm-hmm.
to show that they're both equal parents
Yeah.
under any uh, relationship structure that they're equal.
Right. Right. Okay. You just mentioned about getting orders from a different state, and can we elaborate a little bit on that? Because that is also something parents ask pretty frequently, because a lot of parents think, oh, the state law where the surrogate or where the baby's born is going to apply, or where I live is going to apply. But sometimes, and actually a lot of times, it doesn't necessarily have to be the case. So can you elaborate a little bit on how that works?
Yeah, absolutely. And we deal with that a lot as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
the birth certificate will be issued where the surrogate delivers the baby. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
that's the end point there. Now, where you get an order of parentage doesn't always have to come from the same state in which the baby's born in.
Mm-hmm.
So under the Constitution, you have the full faith and credit that basically says that one state needs to recognize the order from another state and give it full faith and credit and recognize it.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens a lot in these situations is if you have, let's say, parents live in California, well, let's say parents live in Washington State, embryo transfers in California, surrogate lives
Yep.
in.
Okay.
We have three options right there to get a parentage order.
Right.
We can get out of Washington because the parents live there. We can get out of California because the embryo transfer was there, or we could get out of Georgia because that's where she lives.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, so long as the state where she delivers recognizes the order from Washington or California,
Mm-hmm.
you could have same-sex couples, you could have a single person, you could have non-genetic parents, and
Right.
California recognizes all that. And then as long as Georgia accepts the order,
Mm-hmm.
and when I say accepts the order, the group that there's two sets of folks that needs to accept that out-of-state order. It's the hospital,
Mm-hmm.
which has some limited ability to not accept an order. Sometimes you run into hospital admins and counsel that they kind of go on left field on you, but most of the time that's not a problem. And then you have to
Right.
have the vital records of the state that issues the birth certificate accept the order.
Okay.
And so you get orders from other states presented to those two entities, and then you get a birth
Right.
certificate following that.
I see. Okay. Thank you. Again, parents out there, surrogacy may seem like a complicated process and a complicated issue. In fact, it sure is. But again, there are so many experts out there helping you. And just know, no matter what you're going through, no matter how, um, you know, many problems or what kind of problems you're encountering, just know that the experts are here to help you. And we all have the same goal, which is to help you become a parent. And, it doesn't matter if your journey is perfectly smooth or there are hiccups. Let's be honest, more realistically, there will be some sort of hiccups in every journey. Every journey is different. We can't tell you exactly what hiccups you will encounter, but you realistically you will probably encounter some sort of hiccups. But we're here to help you, sharing the same goal. And that being said, these are, the questions that I have prepared today from our audience, and these are, very, very popular questions from audience who are interested in surrogacy but have concerns. Thank you so much for, sharing your expertise and knowledge with us today, Rich. Before you go, do you have any general advice for, for the audience out there who are interested in building their families via surrogacy or egg donation but haven't made up their mind yet?
Yeah, I would say, like Chris said, it's all about the team you put around you. We've dealt with so many different sets of circumstances and facts in this industry that as long as you have the right experts around you, you can basically deal with anything from the legal perspective and the parentage. Um,
Yes.
the, the team you have is important. You want to make sure that you have someone that knows what they're doing, obviously, that has some expertise in
Mm-hmm.
this field. And frankly, the field has been so cutting edge. And like I said, there's so much camaraderie between the attorneys, the agencies, the doctors, that everybody, like Chris mentioned, wants the same thing, and that's just to help somebody have a family and have a baby. I mean, it sounds simple when you put it like that, but that's really what we're all just trying to do. And everybody wants the same things, and including most of the judges
Yeah.
most of the clerks of the court that you put these in front of, they're mostly there to try and help as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. And, parents out there, if you're listening, we just want you to know that stay hopeful. You will become a parent one day. And no matter what happens, you will get there.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you again, Rich. Thanks so much for joining us today. Hopefully, we will have you back for another episode talking about different issues. It's a pleasure to have you. See ya, everyone.
It'd be my pleasure. Thanks again, Chris. Thank you,
All
everybody.
right. All right. Bye.
Bye.